racing, you know what I'm talking about. Just let me know if you wanna go to that home out on the range. They got a lot of nice girls.
So let's get to Regal Award. What do we do with it? What type? The one thing that I'm looking at here, apart from his strong SP profile where things haven't gone his way, is Lockie Nindorf's back on. Now Lockie Nindorf's ridden it twice when he bolted in at Caulfield, and then he got overrun when the horse over-raced, but at least he went forward on it, and it took a future Group 1 winner to knock him off in the Carbine by Panova.
What we do know, this horse has got a phenomenal sustained speed over 800, absolutely phenomenal, and can do it with some pressure. So that's probably the positive side. You have to be brave to back it.
He's one of those either-or equations because at least he's $23, so it's if you back it, it's a small risk reward basis. But on talent, I don't think we've seen the best of him.
Skyhook headed ahead. Brave Runner gaining on the inside. Regal Award now reached the lead. Regal Award dashed away.
So you got Providence most advantage, and I'm looking at this margin from lead figure. 2 starts back, 11 legs for the lead. Margin from lead, 7 legs for the lead last start. 2 big ground made-up figures, but tomorrow's grand final day.
Yeah, how exciting.
Providence went to the pair and gave him a cold. Providence dashed away from Solid Gold. Running on as Inspired Legend, a cricket score odds. Then monopolisting a different gravy. Providence has got 100 to go. He's got the margin. He's got the derby.
Let's get the Headley Grange in that you've got it second in your most advantage at this stage, and I think you can make a big case for this horse.
I just sit here and say, we've got a horse, no ceiling. I looked at that first up run at Randwick, 10.3 lengths below benchmark early. Not a plus for the horse. Absolutely not. Monster in the middle, plus 2.6. Phenomenal last 400 of 9.4. So that's what you know this horse can do. The energy distribution is pure over the last 800 metres. It's massive.
Coming through on the outside, Jimmy Star boxing away with Desert Lightning. Jimmy Star is lifting. Headley Grange on the inside. Here comes the box.
And now on PG Podcast Network, it's time for the year-round carnival with Vince Accardi and your host, Racetrack Ralphie.
Kicking off with some ZZ Top, La Grange's Headley Grange won the Kingsford Smith for Joe Pride and Adam Hieronymus, and in the Derby, of course, J Mac and Chris Waller, grand final day. They go right at it, don't they? Won the Queensland Derby with Providence, and some of that audio of our preview podcast, and of course David Fowler's fantastic calling, courtesy of Sky Racing. Vince Accardi from Daily Sexals. Good morning, mate.
Yeah, good morning, Ralphie. Here we are, another fantastic morning. Good weekend of racing. Very good.
You got to be happy with the way you saw him, all right, mate?
Not complaining. It's one of these things, like in Queensland, for instance, I didn't strike out a winner, but I didn't have any non-collections. Like, they all brought money in. So that part was good.
For those who don't get our preview podcast, your headspace is 1x4, or except if you really like them, it's 2x8.
Yep, and even 2x12 with the Jimmy.
You did go that way for Jimmy, yeah.
Even though for a minute I just thought maybe it wasn't going to happen. I learned a little bit more about Jimmy, which is good. Hopefully we'll talk about it. We'll see.
Of course. Well, we'll park that for a second because unfortunately for the second week in a row, we have to start off with the biggest talking point in racing, which was the Melbourne Racing Club track just not being presented very nicely at all. And we are member driven. We let our members decide what our topics are. And Alan's kicked off by saying enough has been said about the Caulfield track. How do we assess the runs from that meeting when doing the form though in recent weeks? I feel you cannot ignore what on face value might be a good run, but the graded challenge may be a poor run that does not fit with the runner's previous profile. Alternative, should we just put everything out on a day like that in the bin. And just before we get your reply there, Vince, also Bruce has sent a message in. As an owner who's had their horse run at Caulfield Tip on both the 14th of March and again on the 30th, I'm yet to understand why the track is playing so poorly. It's since the installation of the new Heath track, ? The excuse about the track surface being old and need a serious repair, is that really true smoke screening for a bigger problem? Does Vince's data tell a different timeline story? Surely it can't be because of the weather. So Vince, that sets you up. What did you notice from Caulfield as far as the data compared to the visual mess that we're watching?
Well, firstly, the track was heavy.
Yeah.
We have to start there. I mean, that's the reality. You've got a heavy track. And then when you sort of peel through the scenario of the day, the worst part of the track that seemed to come back into play was that section, entering near that 400 metre mark. So getting in from inside the 650 all the way to the 400 metre mark, it was down. It was down when you look at both ends, like let's say what happens from the 8 to the 6 and then from the 2 to the finish line. The variation was about a length and a half. It's not like crazy, but the reality is it's hard when you've got a heavy track, Ralphie. It's just hard. What do you do? I mean, you're running on a heavy track.
So what's really noticeable, and to me this was the real eyebrow raiser that I matched up with your data. Race 1 and Race 2. Now, for those who don't know, Caulfield, there's a shoot in the 1,000, 1,100 and 1,200 metre races. So the shoot's in play in the 1,200 race. When you watch the steward's vision, the entire pack is against the fence in Race 1. And in Race 2, yes, the leader over-raced, I get it, but the entire pack was significantly off the fence. I'll guess at 10 lanes off the fence. Since I've worked with the events, I've never seen at Caulfield on a heavy track, and I know they're 2-year-olds, but I've never seen the first two sections being that slow on any type of surface at Caulfield on that first two sections of Race 1.
Well, you summed it up perfectly. It's very, very much no different to Queensland, by the way, Eagle Farm. You see how wide they ran in the home straight. Like, no one went anywhere near the fence. And this is because riders are looking for the better ground. So it just happened to be a strikeout in Race 1. They're on a genuine heavy part. They're 2-year-olds. And they're running on the inside where it's the worst part of the track, Ralphie.
Yeah.
So you have these two completely scenarios where first section very slow, second section matched, and then there's a bit of a kick home over the last 400 metres because they've done no work. But mind you, I can confidently say that first section of Race 1 is definitely, you have to attribute at least 5 lengths to deliberate going slow. Yep. It's not like they wanted to roll. If they had a roll, they would have gone 5 lengths faster. But they didn't. They went very, very slow. And that happened in 3 races on the card. And there were, because we have to look at it. You look at the other races on the shoot, like you said, because they got out wider. Well, the track's a lot faster. We know that. When you're in lane 10s or wider, it's going to be a lot quicker. And if you have intention, like you really want to get out and sprint with speed, then, of course, you're going to have a much quicker scenario through that first section. It's a hard one, Ralphie. It is a hard one. I don't know what the track managers do or anything like that. Personally, we've seen this track play very, very well, but we're in winter time. They can't do anything about hoses. Even if they didn't have hoses, it wouldn't matter. The rain starts coming down, this track's going to deteriorate.
Yeah, I'm looking at your race speed profiles on Saturday morning as well, which is decades of historical data. Lane bias peaks at 47% in the 4 to 7 corridor, a clear mid-track preference, 4 to 7 horses off the rail when it's true. And that's the case whether it's wet, dry or anything, Vince, isn't it? That's
correct. And this is the scenario that the inside's going to be off, especially if there's decent sized fields. And if the rain comes, and let's say before the event the rain did come, from history that there's a section which plays havoc. Now, during the warmer time, they haven't kept hoses, like the hoses have been staying away, and therefore you didn't have the same issues, particularly approaching that 600 metre mark to the 350. It wasn't there. But if the rain comes, it doesn't matter. It's gonna turn up. But that's been a problem for a long time. It's nothing new. and everyone's going to cut out wide. And what's going to happen is those faster lanes are going to be in play because it's going to be dry no matter what.
I thought what's interesting, and you know the cheer squad was going to be there for Brent Jet Stanley Jet Stanley in the last race for hugging the fence, but equally Bo Mertens deserved the gold medal, and even Dakota Keane in race 7 on Quiet Point, because she drew the inside and got to the outside, and Bo Mertens, he had one aspect in play: get as wide as you possibly could.
Yeah, and that's the smart, and it's not a sad thing to say. That's a rider doing their homework,
100%,
and understanding what to do. And like I said, Rolfie, you got the opposite in Queensland where there is no rain. There was no rain for a couple of days, or a day at least, and they put up the track a lot drier. No one went close to the fence. It doesn't mean the inside was bad. What it means is everybody was going to the place where it's fastest.
No doubt, and that's that's the phrase self-interest. The jockeys have got self-interest too. They know where to go, most of them, certainly the good ones. And let's get to Eagle Farm. So our mindset on Friday morning was it could be heavy, but then, the improving track came into play, and it really delivered given the absolute deluge they got during the week. Yes, of course, Brisbane's got a warmer climate than Melbourne, but how did you actually assess the track? Where was the little quirks in it now that you've had a chance to put your numbers over it?
Well, the reality is, they did say a little. I felt they were a little. Well, no, I shouldn't. The reality is, the track was a slow 6.
Yep,
for sure. Could you have made an argument we're getting towards a slow 7? Maybe, but because they tracked a lot wider, that sort of kept that in check. So they got it right. It was definitely a slow track, and it wasn't a heavy track. Yeah, but to me, what was most interesting was the deliberate nature right from the get-go about staying miles away from the fence on the home turn. That's crazy. Like, a good track like that.
And then eventually there becomes a tipping point because you don't want to get super wide because eventually you're going to give those inside horses a chance. I also think, Vince, which obviously we can't tell specifically with the numbers, but listen to Glenn Boss on Channel 7's coverage and Richo, I think there was a headwind in play, and I think even J-Mac spoke about it on a post-race interview that you couldn't get too far back, and probably that part of that equation is also what you're saying is that if they're already scouting wide, you're going to lose a lot of ground if you're getting super wide on the turn, making you run as opposed to shifting out in the straight. Yeah,
well, this is it, and also there are some dead lanes out wide.
Yep.
That you're going to run into. There's 4. If you sort of get into that 12 to once you get around 16 to 20, it's a bit of a dead zone, and that can have an impact. And then if you're confronted with the headwind as well, that's not going to make it any better for you. And it always comes back to, particularly with those when you got the headwind in the home straight, it's where you're positioned, how much work have you done coming to turning for home is going to make a real big difference. Mind you, the home track, even though they ran where they did, it still wasn't on a firm footing. It was still S5, S6 zone.
So let's get to the 2 Group 1s, starting with the Derby. And Providence was a horse who really took our eye after the meeting there, the all-age stakes meeting at Randwick on the 18th there. Ran second to Matthias. We're impressed with both horses. Matthias hasn't run since. I'm not sure if it's been sold or if they just decided to pull the pin there. But Providence certainly has. And this was our members' bonus chat after the run on the 18th.
I can't help thinking that him and the second horse Providence from a non-winning position, that they are going to be very hard to beat in Queensland. I assume they'll go on a Queensland Derby path.
In Providence, who makes a 14.2 mid-race move, clearly badly, this is my view, clearly badly positioned early and not making good use of your energy distribution because you're just way too far out of the zone. And you know you've got it because when you show a number like that, that's the first signal. But the second signal is 2.9 above in the mid, 6.7 above last 400. These horses are showing the classic signs of they've got staying capability, Ralphie, and lots of it.
Yeah, I dare say Queensland Derby will be the target for both of them.
And Vince, that was the chat after the 18th. He then ran a placing at Doomben when he was favourite. But as I was keen to point out on the Friday, this was Chris Waller set for Grand Final Day 101, wasn't it?
It was, and it was superb too. Like, there was real intent. There was plenty of pressure on, which was interesting, Ralphie. They went out plus 10. So they weren't sort of cruising. They were hammer. And it was the fastest race to the 800 all day, and it was a staying race. So I thought that was really interesting, that they went out with that sort of velocity. And that sets the theme. If you're not in the right place, you're going to be in trouble. And then when you look at a horse like Providence, I just sort of sit back and say, Ralphie, the horse has got the capacity to go fast at a certain speed. And 3.8, it's like, it depends on if you were just looking Kilman on its own, or the nature of the next two horses were in that sort of 8.5, 9 lengths to sort of 7.5 lengths range. You could say that Providence was still borderline in the sweet spot. Like, I wouldn't have felt that he had favours. Probably needed to go a length quicker, but had he gone a length quicker, he might have blown the horse up. So I felt that the ride was like right on point, Ralphie. Like, he made sure it was as fast as the horse could go without losing the rhythm and still having something to hold off on late, because everybody was very negative in speed over the last two sections. I mean, I look at that last, between the 8 and the 4, the average field speed was 7.7 lengths below, and then the last 400, it was like 16.9. And if I sort of get some of the slow horses out and just sort of look at the top sort of 8 horses across the line, it was still 10 lengths below benchmark average speed.
So they're just completely depleted. I'll go a take here. I reckon Chris Waller, who's our era's Bart Cummings, I think he's better than Bart Cummings for this reason. Bart Cummings didn't have J-Mac. So there's no way the jockeys yesterday, that's not disrespecting, but they just didn't have the tools of the modern era. Like, Roy Higgins couldn't watch a video after the race and sort of study his form and everything else like that, like J-Mac can. So it's just a logic. They're just unbelievable, this Joe.
Yeah, well, that's true, Robbie. I mean, I'm not sure about the Esty era and things like that, because it's different times. But the reality is, you're right about the J-Mac. I mean, that to know that you're at your sort of maximum speed without busting the horse open, because that's a fine line. You could have easily gone a length and a half faster, or 2 lengths faster, and you would have blown it up over the last 400 metres. Maybe the horse would have struggled to even run a place.
Yeah, and watching it, I was certainly had self-interest in play, but I thought he's probably going to pair back further than he wants to just to get cover. But there's the jockey knowing speed, isn't it? So he's saying, I'm happy to go back an extra pair because they're going too fast up front.
Yeah, and he understood that, and it was beautiful to watch. I guess if you had your money on him, by the time we got halfway up the straight, you knew that it was just go to the window and get your money. Never in doubt then.
Conversely, this is again about the numbers. It's not zero criticism of Tommy Berry for being proactive, because we like seeing riders be proactive in a big race. And from wide, and we're about to get to one as well with Jimmy, you're better off being proactive, at least you find out. But with Solid Gold, just talk us through the difference, and we're keen to oppose it, in the race-to-race difference of early speed when the market wanted to come for her because she ran home well at Doomben. I just couldn't see how she was going to either outsprint Providence or get it right spot. And he went forward, good on him for trying, but that was just an impossibility, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was, Ralphie, and that's the big one that you just highlighted. Going from 18.9 lengths below benchmark at Doomben on the 16th to the 5th, and then having to go +5 on the 30th of 5th, which was on the weekend. That's massive. A 23-length turnaround in early speed. It can't help you, Ralphie. And the horse had never gone near that speed. I know it's a lightly raced horse, but that's like well beyond its capacity. So that was a runner that was engaged to run at a certain position, try and be in that midfield pack, not further back, and that's the price you have to pay. You have to go at that speed, and probably through the first 1,000 metres, you might have thought he was going okay because the horse would have been rock hard fit, Ralphie. And it's just that second half where you're really going to collapse, and the collapse was big, especially over the last 400 metres. It was like monster slowdown.
So we'll get to the Kingsford Smith, the other Group 1 on the card there. Terrific finish there. Only a nose between Headley Grange and Jimmy Star. Fangirl smoking home for third. What's your take on the race?
It was a solid race, Ralphie. They went out at a good clip, +2, which I guess for the day is reasonable. In the middle, there was a little bit of a slowdown in the middle, which was interesting, Ralphie, because they obviously knew they were running not at a brutal speed, but there was just that little bit of an easing. Part of it's got to do that everybody was looking to track into those wider lanes. To give you an idea, again, if I'm just sort of looking at the first 8 horses across the line, the average speed was around benchmark. Then you look at the mid, for those first 8 runners, that's 2.5 lengths. So genuine slowing of about 2 lengths to get into those better lanes. And then the plus was there was a bit of a kick down over the last 400 metres. Fangirl was probably 2 horses that caught my eye. Fangirl and Von Hook.
Yep.
Yeah, they were the 2 horses that really caught my eye in the way they finished. And compared to the way the race was set up, and they just looked like they were going to be big improvers off that run. But ultimately, I wanted to sort of say, Headley Grange, the ride was just sensational. I'd say it was probably the right. J Mac and Providence was unbelievable, but this was close to the ride of the day for me. Just the way he parked it, where he had the horse positioned, to have that nerve to sit there, sitting a half length below benchmark, tagging that pack a couple of lengths, a length and a half, 2 lengths was just gold. Didn't have to slow as much in the mid, and ensured there was something left for the horse to put in, a top effort over the last 200 metres, and that's what the horse did. Put a +2.1. Wasn't the fastest because Fangirl to own that, Ralphie, with a +3, but it was enough to beat. I thought it was enough to beat Jimmy. Like, I reckon he outrode him. I really do. I just thought the ride is what the difference was between the two.
Well, my instant take after the race, and I'm pretty still happy with it now after looking at the whole card and your data, is that I think barriers are generally overrated as far as, as excuses. But I think on this occasion, where Ethan Brown was drawn, I don't think he could have done much more. At least he was proactive. There were a lot of jockeys, and we often decry it when they go, oh, well, we're drawn wide, we're going to completely concede, we drop out the back and you give a horse no chance. At least he tried to find out, whereas, Headley Grange had the perfect run, and Adam Hieronymus ride, as you said, was perfection. But he was able to ride that cute race from barrier 3. Ethan Brown had to do something, and he did it. And he missed by nose. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, true. I feel the bigger thing if we're moving away from a rider scenario now, just looking at the horse, Jimmy's a couple of lengths inferior horse we've given. That's what I've come to the conclusion is Jimmy is not. Yeah, he's not as good. He handles it, gets through it, runs competitively, but he loses a couple of lengths. Because if that ground was a faster surface all the way through, particularly even if it was a lot faster from the 800 to the finish line and you were on good 4, the result would have been very different. This is what I've noticed now with Jimmy is you look at it, you could say, yeah, he's not running as well, but the wet tracks definitely put a dent in him. He's still good. He's still very competitive, but he loses that shine. He loses that couple of lengths and makes the others look a little bit better, Ralph.
So he's still got that grit and tenacity to put himself in the finish, but it's just that wheel spinning a little bit, yeah?
Yeah, the kick's not there.
Yeah.
And that's because of the ground conditions, not because the horse doesn't want to do it.
Interesting, because I think we're going to get a price for him with the Stradbroke, because of course he'll stay up in the weights and others will drop in the weight, and it could be Jimmy Star and Fangirl, the 2 stars.
Yeah, well, Fangirl was like a monster. That was a monster run. I'm not saying it's as good as I've ever seen it, but the way the horse finished, the way it hit the line, another 50 metres, it probably wins.
One of J Max, so just looking at the beaten jockeys here. There's no comment there. I know he kept it brief. I did watch the beaten jockeys, but he had a smile on his face. I think he might stick on it.
Yeah, smart move. Now it's just going to get back down to where we end up track condition was. I know we're in the winter time, so maybe we're not going to end up on a good trap. I don't know, but that's probably the big difference with Jimmy. If you're going to stay in this sort of slow 6 range, Jimmy's going to be a bit of a risk now moving forward. Like for me, I'm super confident I've nailed it with this Jimmy boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see.
We'll see. A couple worth mentioning. I know before we get to Van Hook, just in the middle of it, at the 5th was Transatlantic. I can't help thinking that the Stradbrokes his grand final, and Tony Golan is a serious grand final trainer up in Queensland there, and he had to race on speed, which is his style, but it's still a challenge race to race to go from chipping away on very heavy ground at Eagle Farm 4 weeks earlier to what he did on Saturday. He was always going to have some vulnerability, and again, probably looking at his record, even though he's got a heavy track win, he too is better on top of the ground.
I don't think the horse is good enough personally, Ralphie, but at this time of the year, if we maintain this sort of give in the ground, he can stay in the mix.
Yep.
But if I look at, okay, he's gone +2, second up. It is a bit of a work effort to go from below benchmark 1 run to a stronger performance. He definitely improved through each of the sections. A little bit of breather the horse got between the sort of the 500 metre mark to the 250 metre mark. I felt it helped the horse a little bit. His overall performance of +1.4 was well up from his first up, so that's a really positive sign. And he does look set to peak. Now, if he could run to the 3.6...
Was that Caulfield?
Yeah, if he runs to that number there, then he's not going to miss the money. When I look at him, he's trending more like a 2.5 runner.
No, 3.6 was third up, so I just got that gut feeling that's what Tony Gold's set him for. And Von Hook, what takes you about? Yeah, he was the get back flash home horse, but obviously there was enough in the overall substance of his clothes to say that he's got a big run coming up in him. Is what you're suggesting?
Yeah, the big thing for me was this, Ralphie. I felt that his second up run at Bendigo, especially when you look at the last 2 sections where it won, he would have been affected by that run. I felt that possibly could have even been flattened, even if you look at his first up run, which was really strong. And then he's gone out even tougher over the last sort of 800 metres second up. It went missing until the last little bit, and you could see it definitely in the mid. He was miles off what that horse is capable of doing, typically running, anywhere between sort of 3 to 5 lengths above in the mid, is now travelling like more than a length below. And that final overall last 400 wasn't quite there. And I just can't help but feel, and I'm dealing with the fact that he had to come back in distance. This horse is going to skyrocket off that run. And he does have a 2.9. And I just can't help but feel that's like on the cards to happen next start. Now, of course, the hard part is this at this time of the year. His ground conditions will impact whether you're going to be able to reach that number or not. It's like now I know Jimmy's not going to get to 4.5 unless you've got a genuine good track. He's going to run 2.5, 3.
Yep.
And Von Hoek may not be able to get to 2.9 if we're on a slow to heavy ground. But if we're on the better side of slow, then there's a big chance of that. And all of a sudden, you look at that puts him in the mix with the Transatlantic, and even puts him in the mix with someone like Fangirl.
No, it's going to be a cracker, absolutely. This Friday and Saturday, Friday's the preview, and we'll do an update on the Saturday. We're going to cover the Queensland Oaks, and you can listen, of course, if you listen to this, you can listen to our preview of last Saturday, free, always. We always put everything up completely unedited, so if you're not a customer and you catch us on the Monday or Tuesday, you can always listen to what our preview podcasts are. So if you'd like to get the preview podcast, we've got our IN, racetrackralphie.com.au. Click through the links to the preview podcast. If you're an existing Daily Sectionals customer, you can just get an audio-only top-up as well, providing you, of course, get the race speed profiles from Eagle Farm. In the meantime, we're going to wind it up there because we've got a couple of very, very interesting performances from elsewhere in the card that we'll save for our members bonus. We are not here without our members, and we are corporate bookmaker affiliation free. Thanks so much for listening to Year Round Carnival.